Hi, Shani Allison here, member of LANS. For more information, you may visit jalans.org, that's JALANDS.org, or you can visit our Twitter page at LANS_JA, that's LANDS_JA. So today I'll be discussing soaring food prices and reports of further hikes, the Jamaican government's decision to sign an order allowing the China Harbour Engineering Company CHEC to go ahead with the Montego Bay Perimeter Road project, the new Secretary General of CARICOM, and the ongoing genocidal attacks on Palestine by the Israeli government. I will begin internationally given the painful events that have taken place this week. As many of you would have heard by now, the genocide of the Palestinian people by the Israeli government has taken a turn for the worse, with the Israeli forces launching airstrikes and other violent attacks on Palestine. And just as anyone who is being forced to live in substandard conditions as a second-class citizen and facing extreme violence, Palestine has asserted their right to resist this. For those who don't know, this stems from the decades of land theft and settler colonialism. For those unfamiliar with the term, though, settler colonialism is a process by which one racial or ethnic group displaces an indigenous or native group in order to set up settlements for themselves in the areas that these indigenous people would have been occupying. Israelis have been infiltrating the land owned and occupied by the Palestinians, forcefully removing them from their own homes, throwing them out on the street, beating them, killing them, throwing their children into Israeli prisons, and they have been trying to settle on Palestinian land since 1948. It is now 2021. The worst part of this is that the United Nations ceded a portion of Palestinian land to Israel against the will of the Palestinian people. And even then, the greedy Israelis have been trying to seize more and more of the land while wiping out Palestinian people. We stand in full solidarity with Palestine and the Palestinian people. In the same breath, I have to make mention of the current Andrew Holness-led Jamaican government, with Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith at the helm of the Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade Ministry, and their willingness to strengthen ties with Israel, knowing full well the atrocities that they continue to be guilty of. In fact, any attempt to maintain and strengthen ties with this apartheid state should definitely be seen as an endorsement of genocide and colonialism. On to local news. I'll begin with the soaring food prices and the need for food security. On May 12, 2021, the Jamaica Observer published an article titled "Chicken Prices Flying Up," warning Jamaicans to brace for increases in the price of chicken due to increased cost of grain globally. According to this article, the price of corn went up 59%, soybean 54%, and wheat 39%. So these are all grains that are usually included in the feedings for the chickens. And those are sold commercially normally, packaged together. The Minister with responsibility for agriculture, Floyd Green, stated that the ministry was actively monitoring the situation and that they will be having discussions with key stakeholders. And in a separate Gleaner article titled "More Dough for Flour," the Jamaica Flour Mills announced that there would be an 8 to 11% increase in flour effective May 12, 2021 as a result of slipping exchange rates, ever increasing oil prices, as well as the rising cost of grain, as I highlighted in the previous article about the rising chicken costs. The increase in flour comes just 3 months after another 14% increase in flour. So by that math, 14% increase in February, plus another 8 to 11% increase coming May, would make the cost of flour, having risen this year between 32 and 35% in total thus far. A lot of the issues that the country faces in terms of prohibitive prices of basic food items as a result of the government's lack of investment in agro-processing, general lack of commitment to food protectionism, and food security really. The high dependence on oil, which states that the government and high dependence on oil, which the states that the government has pretty much ended up turning its back on, Venezuela being one of those states, has invested in out of sheer goodwill to reduce. In other words, we've been very dependent on oil that has been supplied to us by Venezuela for very good prices. And as we know, with Jamaican government's current foreign policy, instead of supporting Venezuela to continue to supply this oil to stabilize their economy, Jamaica has opposed Venezuela in favor of the United States. But that would be aside from the point. With Venezuela having provided oil to us at low prices in the past, which would have kept production costs lower, and the current oppression that's now facing the U.S. sanctions, they're facing from U.S. sanctions, its ability to assist here has shrunken to near zero. If opportunities to develop green energy were better utilized by the government, as Venezuela was attempting to assist Jamaican government to do, then oil costs could have had less of an impact on food prices. And as the Jamaica Flour Mill stated, the price of oil is definitely one of those factors that has been pushing up the price of flour, as I said, up to 35% in this year alone. I'll now turn to the issue of the Jamaican government's decision to sign an order allowing the China Harbour Engineering Company, CHEC, to go ahead, also called CHEC, I should clarify, to go ahead with the Montego Bay Perimeter Road project. In Tuesday, May 11th, sitting of the House of Representatives, opposition leader Mark Golding insisted that the government was on a bad legal footing, his words, for giving the China Harbour Engineering Company the green light to build the long-awaited Montego Bay Bypass instead of drafting an order seeking approval from the cabinet, and Parliament for the project to be undertaken as a national development project. In other words, a signed order was presented which would have required parliamentary approval, but no evidence of this approval exists. According to the Prime Minister, there are provisions under the Public Procurement Act that can be used to sidestep standard procurement procedures for national development projects within reason. So, what was the reason? Holness argues that CHEC, that is China Harbour Engineering Company, has been doing preliminary work on this project. And since they've built other highways, such as the North-South Highway, to internationally acceptable standards, it was in the best interest of the company to proceed with CHEC. He added that to go through a competitive bidding process that allows local contractors to have a chance to score this contract. That's what Mark Golding is suggesting that the government do. He said that this process would further delay the project, which has been on the table for 20 years, and that the price of the work that needed to be done would rise if they were to wait on this competitive bidding, which Andrew Holness says would take at least a year with best efforts. Later on, in a video release, Golding admitted that he does not have an issue with the China Harbour Engineering Company, but the process lacked transparency as they were essentially agreeing to a deal with CHEC behind closed doors, the details of the contract sealed from the public and not allowing taxpayers to know how their money was being used. Given the track record that the Holness-led administration has of ignoring wisdom and sidestepping outline procedures at will, to the detriment of citizens, might I add. We see this with the Dry Harbour mining project as well as the destruction of the mangroves in Hanover in order to build a hotel. When he says that this is in the best interest of the people, the skepticism is called for, in my opinion. We have no reason to take his word for it that this is in our best interest. And on principle, I can get behind a call to have the project occur in such a way that those who need to and want to know are aware of what is going on every step of the way. In regional news this week, former Deputy Secretary General of CARICOM, Dr. Carla Barnett of Belize, became the first woman to be appointed as Secretary General of CARICOM. This announcement was warmly received by Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez and by Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arellano, who both congratulated her and voiced their hopes of continuing to work to strengthen ties between Latin America and the Caribbean. In light of the continuing issues faced within the Caribbean from U.S. interference and sanctions, I guess it's good that the new Secretary General seems to enjoy the respect of leaders of these, foreign affairs leaders of these two countries most affected in this region by this interference. The outgoing Secretary General, Erwin LaRocque, is known for his criticism of the European Union, but also seems to carry pro-USA sentiments, which were punctuated really by the cowardice to speak frankly on the events taking place as a result of the U.S. sanctioning of Venezuela. Instead, they sought to take a non-existent middle ground. Non-existent because there really is no middle ground here. It's my hope that the change will bring some level of assertiveness necessary to create a unified front against imperialism, and that the governments of Cuba and Venezuela are not left disappointed because of there being more of the same thing, especially given the fact that Carla Barnett was a member of the United Democratic Party that is known to embrace and even idolize the economic and foreign policies of the United States. That's it from me and for this week's Lands Updates. Again, for more information on who we are and what we do, visit jalands.org. That's jalands.org. Or you can visit our Twitter page at Lands_JA. That's LANDS_JA. I'm Shanae Finlayson. Stay safe.